The wheel of time turns and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Legend fades to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. In one age called the Third Age by some, an age yet to come, an age long past, a wind rose in the mountains of mist. The wind was not the beginning. There are neither beginnings nor endings to the turning of the wheel of time. But it was a beginning. If a sword had a memory, it might be grateful to the forge fire, but never fond of it. We rode on the winds of the rising storm. We ran to the sounds of thunder. We danced among the lightning bolts and tore the world asunder. Let the dragon ride again on the winds of time. Welcome back again to the library, readers and rapscallions. It's good to see everyone again. Today I'm going to recap and just kind of give my thoughts on a series that has kind of started off as a bit of a long-term project for me and ended up being something really, really special. And that's going to be, as we've seen in the thumbnail, as we've seen in the title, it's going to be Wheel of Time. So I began this series reading it for the first time all the way back, like 2 years ago now, more than that, in March of 2023. And I didn't do that all at once, of course. I spaced it out. And I feel like that's how people should read it. Don't marathon it. Don't do it all at once. But it was something that was singularly special. Simultaneously, it combined the worlds of classic and modern fantasy into a 14-volume journey that was something truly sensational. So why did I decide to read it? Like I said, I picked it up over 2 years ago now, and I'd read quite a bit before then. At the time, it was mainly audiobooks, and I kind of bounced around mostly in the fantasy genre. I'd read a lot before this, but I wasn't what I would call a reader. Like, I wasn't pounding through multiple books a month at this time like I do now. And I was curious about Wheel of Time. I had the mass market paperback version that I picked up. I tried it, got about a third of the way in and put it down. Tried it later, put it down, tried the audiobook, didn't do it, and then eventually stuck with it. At this point, I decided to start buying the books ahead so that if I had like 8 of these books and I was on book 2, then okay, I'm much less likely to call it quits, and hopefully I would like it. And spoiler alert, I did. It's something really sensational, but what is it about? In the Shattered Millennia, following a conflict that nearly destroyed the world, mankind lived in the shadow of prophecy that a hero would be reborn and one day return to either save the world or destroy it. With the Dark One, the source of all evil, now close to breaking free of his prison, a mysterious figure arrives in a backwater village to find the prophesized dragon reborn, to stand against the Dark One and put an end to his malice and destruction. After an invasion by servants of the Dark One, she persuades 5 friends to leave their homes and enter the larger world, filled with unimaginable dangers of shadow and incredible promises of light. So yeah, that's just where Eye of the World starts, and it takes you all over this incredible world across 3 years in universe time. Something like 4.5 million words. If you were looking at the hardcover editions, that's over 10,000 pages, something like 2,700 named characters throughout that series, and you are with them all the way. Why should you read it? Better question is, why shouldn't? Wheel of Time is a series that started off, I want to say the first one was published in 93 or 94. It was somewhere in the mid-1990s, I forget exactly, but it's at that crossroads of classical and modern fantasy. And Wheel of Time is where a lot of modern fantasy really kind of gets going. When you read Eye of the World, it definitely reads a lot like something that Tolkien could have written, and there's a very simple reason for that. A lot of the times back then, if you were a fantasy writer and you weren't doing something that was similar to Tolkien, you weren't getting published. This was back in like the old sword and sorcery days. So Eye of the World, at least like the first half, kind of does read like something that, not copying Lord of the Rings, but the general bones of it feel very Tolkien. And then by the end of the book, and especially by Great Hunt Book 2, it's something completely different. It's something completely special, and it just keeps going off in its own direction from there and into something that is really an incredible journey. Speaking of the characters, that is one of the other real great strengths of this series. You start off Eye of the World with your folks that are kind of wide-eyed, naive kids, basically, like they're teenagers at the start of the series. The whole thing covers about 3 years of in-universe time. And by the end of it, you've seen how far they've come, the heights that they've ascended to, the depths that they've fallen to, and just going through the ringer with these guys. That's a huge strength of having such a long series. It might be intimidating, but you're with them for so long that they feel like your friends that you're going to meet again every time you open up a new book. Every time they fail or something bad happens, you're crying right alongside them. Every time they have a great victory, you're pumping your fists in the air and cheering out loud. Just kind of seeing how their journey started and how it progressed. And this series has characters for everybody. That you have your good and your evil, morally complicated anti-heroes. You have other antagonists, and their motivations are a little bit more complicated. And everything in between. Everybody kind of gets an equal amount of attention. Long story short is that this series has a little bit for everybody. And for talking about reasons why you should read it, it's finished. So one of the problems that people run into with some of these bigger fantasy series, more popular fantasy series, Song of Ice and Fire, is that they're not done, and they probably won't be. Wheel of Time had the unfortunate event where the author Robert Jordan passed away. After, I think the last book he finished was Knife of Dreams, so that would be book 11. And then Brandon Sanderson, who is probably the most popular fantasy author today, was picked to finish the series based off of his notes and drafts, and he brought it to an incredible conclusion. And again, that's another reason why to finish the series. Not only is it finished, but it comes to an incredible ending that ties off everything neatly and sends our characters that made it all the way through on their way, and they go, presumably off to live their lives after the series is finished. But hey, it's a great fantasy series. What would that be without magic? So the magic in the series has just enough rules to create confinements and stakes within that magic system, while also being fluid enough of a system that it doesn't kind of feel video gamey. I feel like that is a bit of a weakness in some modern fantasy, where magic has rules that kind of read like an RPG, rather than being something like Gandalf, where he's a wizard because he's a wizard. He can do magic because it's magic. And it kind of, Wheel of Time's magic systems, plural, really straddle that line. So what do I mean by magic systems? Well, that's a very complicated answer, and I'm realizing now that there's not really a shorthand version of Wheel of Time, but to keep things simple, there's a waking world and a dreaming world. Those have two separate magic systems. Within the waking world, there's two other magic systems that exist because of plot reasons. I kind of can't talk about the true source, I'll call it, without getting into spoilery stuff. And within those, you have your channelers, that's what they call magic users, with a male and a female half of the magic source. And this is one of the key pillars of the world building that's done here. Only women can use magic for much of the lore of this series. Men are capable of it, but they go insane when they do. As a result of that, a lot of the institutions within the world of Wheel of Time are matriarchal, because the most powerful people in the world are all women. I'll get to world building in a minute. With all these magic systems and spells being thrown about, you get some really crazy displays of power. I'm talking like altering realities, erasing people from the fabric of existence, accessing other planes of reality, walking through the dream world, wiping out entire armies with a thought. A lot of the developments and how our characters, ascend into power, those that do, it all feels very fluid and very natural, like they came into this and actually did learn everything. At the same time, all the characters, even the really, really powerful ones, they're all glass cannons. They can destroy entire armies with a thought, but they can also still be killed with a knife in the back. And that's one of the things with the magic system. It never feels like a Deus Ex Machina. Everything our characters do feels earned and like it all makes sense and is a natural progression of the story. But even though you have these characters that are really, really powerful, there are still stakes. I mentioned world building a little bit, getting more into that. This does a lot of what Tolkien did with Lord of the Rings, where he created a world that feels old and lived in, and like this is all real history that exists in this world. Robert Jordan does the same thing with his world in Wheel of Time. There's so many different cultures throughout this world. I haven't been able to find any kind of map that shows the scale of the world of Wheel of Time, like how big it is relative to land masses on Earth. But however big or small it is, all these kingdoms and city-states and regions all feel distinct. There's different approaches to diplomacy, different approaches to warfare. Robert Jordan is an extremely descriptive writer. You will know all the details of every button, buckle, sash, handkerchief, dress, suit, and top hat that you come across, and all the colors of all the fabrics are made out of. And that might be a little bit irksome to read on a reread, but while you're going through it for the first time, you get every detail and you really feel like this is a world that people live in. Concerning the cultures, like for example, you have one region that is basically like Osgiliath. It's right on the border with it's called the borderland. It's right on the border where all the evil people are, basically, to kind of keep it simple. And they are people that have a culture heavily based on warfare, but that's not a glory thing, that's a necessity thing, because they're constantly fighting off these forces of the shadow. They don't really have time for the machinations of diplomacy. You go to another location, Carhan, and their whole thing is diplomatic machinations and kind of court intrigue. They call it the Great Game because it's everybody kind of trying to one-up each other, and then as the series goes on, some of our characters end up using that to their advantage to kind of get everybody to stop fighting each other and address the greater threat. The cultures are so rich throughout this series that you have forms of dress and forms of speaking, and even it all comes down to idiosyncrasies, even, where you can, once you get through into the later parts of the series, you can have a character be introduced and they just start speaking and you immediately know where they're from because of the mannerisms that are used by all these characters that are all culturally distinct. Now that I've talked about a lot of the good in the series, I kind of want to talk about some of the drawbacks. They do exist. The series is not perfect. But guys, we need to stop the way that we are selling this series to people. When I talk about this series with other folks, or I've had them they've told me stuff about it, the first thing they say is that it's amazing, awesome, giant, life-changing. And the second thing they say is, well, yeah, it's great, but books 6 through 10 are trash and you just kind of need to plow through them before you get to the good stuff. After the good stuff and before the good stuff, there's a big slump in the middle. I don't like to use the word slog because I didn't really feel that way. Maybe if I was there when it was all coming out and I was having to wait months or years in between these books, I would have felt a little bit differently. But there's no bad books in this series. Having something this grand in scope, having something with this many moving parts, you are inevitably going to have to slow down and move pieces around to kind of set the stage for what's to come. And that does inevitably happen. But guys, even with some of the slower stuff, Winter's Heart, for example, book 9, it does have quite a slow plot line in it. It also has perhaps the single most important event in the entire series before the last battle happens. So that's your slog for you. There's give and take, there's good and bad. Um, Robert Jordan is a little bit of a repetitive writer, but like I mentioned before, he's very, very descriptive, and you can really understand everything in the world around you and get an extremely vivid picture of what this world looks like. Having repetition in it, if somebody read it a bit faster than I did, or if somebody is rereading it, yeah, I can see how that would kind of drag a little bit. But if you're taking your time with this series, like I suggest you do for your first time, having characters that semi-frequently restate their goals to each other or rehash points to kind of keep everybody on the same page is really, really helpful to sort of basically just remember what's going on. Because, guys, there's a lot. It's a huge series. It's very, very detailed and grand in scope, and it's kind of easy to get lost if you're not really paying attention. All that being said, do not let the size of the books or the length of the series intimidate you. Yeah, it's over 14 books. Yeah, maybe it could have been trimmed down a little bit, but what an astounding ride it was going through all of this. Going from Emmons Field to Shia Ghul with all these incredible people. Like I said, it felt like I was hanging out with old friends again. Some of the moments in this series are just absolute peak of fantasy. The last battle, Dumai's Wells, all of Shadow Rising. It was just payoff after payoff after payoff. And does it slow down a little bit? Yeah, I mean, like all books do. But having a series that long, when deaths happen, they really, really hit. When triumphs happen, you're standing up there and you're cheering with all of those people, and it's like you're living it with them instead of just. It's more than just reading a book. It's living it. Something that long, that complicated, that detailed. You're so invested in it. Is this my favorite series? No, but it is on the short lists. It's in the top 5, I'll say. And I can only hope that I find something that gets me that invested ever again. It was just sensational. That's going to do it for my thoughts on Wheel of Time. Should you do this? Definitely. Maybe not as your first big fantasy series, but it's absolutely something you should take on. Don't feel like you have to marathon it. Take your time, digest the series, enjoy it, savor it. Just have a great time. It was wonderful. And that journey that you go on is going to be one that you're going to remember forever. Thank you guys so much for watching, Readers and Rapscallions. I really appreciate the little bit of extra attention the channel has kind of been getting recently. Give me a like and subscribe if you feel like I have earned it, and we will see you next time in the library.